This Indian seems to float in the air. It's a feat which, for skeptics, simply defies belief.
Okay, guys, levitation. Mind over matter. Is that possible? Can you levitate mind over matter? Most of you guys will say no to that, right? All right, so when I'm talking about mind over matter, I mean no magic tricks, no illusions. It's literally you're gonna sit there and then you're gonna will yourself to levitate. Most will say no. The reason is because of gravity, right? So how do you overcome gravity? Mind over matter. Most of you guys say you can't, but they're believers on that. And some of these people who believe in it, they are fairly well educated, like my dad, who happens to be a medical doctor. He believes in it. He always has. There are famous people like Tom Cruise thinks that it's possible. Then again, he's a Scientologist. And there are even physicists who believe in it. My friends of mine, a bunch of them believe in it. They're really open-minded. They're open-minded people. Is it possible to levitate mind over matter? In fact, the first time I saw a levitating yogi, it was on a magazine cover. I must have been about 5 or 6. So I asked my dad, I said, Dad, is this for real? And he looks at me like I'm nuts. I mean, he was really pissed off that I was even questioning it. He said, of course it's real. These people have been doing it for hundreds of years. I said, Dad, I don't get it. How do you overcome gravity? And my dad loves physics. He thinks he's good at it too, kind of like you guys are. So he came up with this insane explanation. He said, you know, gravity pulls you down, right? So gravity is going to pull you down. So gravity pulls you down. So this is your weight. So what you need to do is you need to cancel out gravity. I said, how do you do that, Dad? He said, you have to come up with some kind of a spiritual uplift. Let's call that spiritual uplift a holy force. All right. So you need to generate a strong enough holy force that's going to actually cancel out your gravity. So the next logical question is, how the hell do you do that? How do you generate a strong enough spiritual uplift? So you got to meditate, you got to do yoga, you got to be a nice person, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking, so it's going to be out of reach, so it cannot be done. All right, so none of them are agreeable to me. It's not going to happen. So what kind of a person will believe in something like this? What's his religion? My dad is a Muslim, guys. My dad's a Muslim. My mom's a Christian. So that makes me a Jew. So out of this little confusion, next thing you know, I grew up literally doing yoga and meditation. So they turn to the Eastern religions. And I haven't been able to levitate since then. So levitation, mind over matter, is that even possible? Why do people believe in this sort of stuff? And then something weird happened. This happened like 6 years ago or 7 years ago. America's Got Talent. This guy, his name is Special Head, showed up. And end of this, my Facebook lit up by students who have taken this course before.
Can we get a ladder back here?
I think we too. I know, right? This is crazy. I am Special Head. What I do is quite phenomenal, but I'm concerned that the initial preparation that I must do will be possibly disturbing to the judges and audience. I have to align my chakras and get into a very meditative state. This environment is going to be quite difficult. Those X's are very loud, and I hope it doesn't destroy my concentration.
Hello. You okay?
Oh, I'm all right.
All right. What is your name?
My name is Special Head.
I personally have never taken a sedative, but I imagine if I would take a sedative and look in the mirror, I would see Special Head. Go ahead.
Okay.
Special Head. Special Head.
Somebody want to get that? Messing up his chi, Howard. How are you supposed to meditate if you're hitting buzzer? How's he doing that? That's really freaking cool.
I want Howard to go first because I think Howard had a premature excitation.
I did. I was annoyed with you. I wanted to lock you in a mental institution. And then lo and behold, you pulled off your special trick, Special Head. And I'm going to take my ex back because I actually like what you did. I've never done that before. First time.
This was amazing. And I'm sitting right here and I'm looking and I'm like, how is he doing this?
You know, I'm so glad I didn't hit my ex because I think what we all just witnessed was out of this world.
I just saw something I have never seen before, and I definitely want to see again. It's a yes from me.
It is a hands down definite yes from me.
I want to see you again. Yes.
It is a yes for me. You have 4 yeses. You're going to Vegas.
Who can float in air, but he can barely walk. Wow, that was amazing.
Thank you.
I like your team. Yeah, I was. It wasn't really working the same way.
How do you do that trick?
I mean, look, the whole room is yapping about it, how you did it.
Oh, we'll be back with more America's Got Talent. How are you supposed to meditate if you're hitting buzzer?
Magic trick for mind over matter. Special head says, no magic. It's mind over matter. That's what he said. In fact, he said this is a product of years of meditation and yoga. He did learn this evidently in Turkey, a country where I'm from. That's what he claims. So the question is this for real? Anyway, so let's move forward. Tintin in Tibet, published in 1959. One of the biggest comic books in Europe. The European comic book genre is different. You got these heroes, but these are just heroes. They're not like American superheroes. They are much more interesting in that respect. And this is almost as big as Disney is or Mickey Mouse is in 1950s. And the Tintin is based upon the author's life experience. The author is also the artist in this case. All right, so the Tintin is a journalist, so he's in Tibet, and then he runs into this monk, and then while he was talking to the monk starts to levitate. So this brings us to the next one. Guys, regardless of what your religion is, you could be a Muslim, you could be a Christian, you could be a Jew, you could be a Hindu, Buddhist, or whatnot. Every single religion has anecdotal evidence for those who are actually saintly or saint-like, who are able to levitate. In every single religion, you have these stories of people who are able to levitate. Of course, the biggest one comes from Christianity. We're talking about Jesus being able to walk on water. Okay, that's a form of levitation. Despite the fact that most of you guys don't even question it. Most of you guys are highly skeptical, but if you want this, you grew up with these stories from the Bible, all right? You would be behaving just like these people. It's not just a thing about Christianity. Every single religion is going to have this kind of. Next question is, if it's possible, why is it that we don't see people do it on the streets or on the train or somewhere else? Okay, I love this one. I love about it. Is this real or is this just a magic trick? He has to hold on to the bar on the side. Guys, if it's real levitation, he still has to hold on to it. The reason is because train is going to keep changing direction, which means that your body is going to keep moving in the opposite direction of the acceleration, so you will be just hitting the walls or other people. You kind of have to balance yourself. So mind over matter levitation, is this a real thing or is it everything is just a magic trick? This sort of stuff is possible. You will see people being able to levitate in our daily life.
I'd like a medium creamy chocolate chip. Yes.
Oh my god. This can't really be happening. Babe, you're floating. Oh my god. Oh. Laura, can you hear me? This is really, really tricky. You were like this high off your stool.
Illusion or whatever. All right, so the other thing you have to do is you have to overcome gravity. So how do you overcome gravity? Mind over matter. All right, gravity gives you your weight, and is it possible that you're putting too much weight in gravity? Is this something that you can overcome? You know, you can lose weight by losing mass, which means that you have to diet. Or you can weigh yourself at the surface of the moon. You will weigh 1/6 of whatever it is that you're weighing. Or you can weigh yourself on top of a very tall building, like the Sears Tower. So you're going to weigh slightly less. That's what's going to happen. Or an airplane, 30,000 feet up. You will weigh 2 pounds less. There's a question for that. Falling objects accelerate. We know that. Hammer and a feather drop from the same height will reach the ground at the same time, right? Why? Don't say anything yet. Because you don't really understand the question. Hammer and a feather drop from the same height will fall under the influence of gravity and reach the ground at the same time, only in the absence of air friction, right? Only in the absence of air friction. So the question is why? Why? And when I ask you guys a question about this on the test, here's what I get. I say, only in the absence of air friction, hammer and a feather, when dropped from the same height, they will reach the ground at the same time. The question is why? And your answer is because everything falls at the same rate under the influence of gravity in the absence of air friction. And to you guys, this sounds like a right answer. I don't know what part of the question is not very clear. When somebody asks you, why is the sky blue? You can't say because sky is blue. That's not the answer. All right. I already gave you all the conditions. I said, hey, listen, there's a mystery here. The mystery is this. Everything is falling at the same rate, right? Why? Why is it that the mass of the falling object does not matter? And here's what your mind does when I corner you like that. Your mind goes, oh, wait a minute. Everything is falling at the same rate. Does this mean that everything is experiencing the same amount of gravitational pull? Falling objects, guys, do they all experience the same amount of gravitational pull? Yes or no? What do you guys think? So everything is falling at the same rate. Is that because everything is experiencing the same amount of gravitational pull? Okay, I'm seeing no. You guys are going, wait a minute, something is wrong. So those of you guys who are saying no, give yourselves 5 points. Absolutely, the answer is no, because the gravitational pull that you experience is your weight. All right, so the gravitational pull that you experience becomes your weight. Not everything weighs the same, yet everything falls at the same rate. So the question is why? This is insane. All of a sudden it gets confusing. In fact, this was a mystery. I mean, no one knew how to explain this. This is a weird sort of stuff that no one knew how to explain. So Galileo comes up with the idea. And then people started thinking, why is it everything is falling at the same rate? Because initially you thought that the heavy objects were falling faster. That's what Aristotle came up with. And then Galileo does these weird free fall experiments only to realize that everything falls at the same rate. So the weight doesn't matter. The mass doesn't matter. If the weight, the mass, if they don't matter, why would objects fall at the same rate? Is it possible that they experience the same amount of pull? No, because the amount of pull that they're experiencing is their weight. They don't weigh the same, yet they fall at the same rate. So until Newton came along, no one had an explanation for it. There was no explanation for it. And as it so happens, Newton's explanation wasn't good enough for Einstein. So Einstein comes along roughly about 250 years later. He says, screw this. He spends 10 years trying to actually solve this puzzle. And then comes up with his own theory of gravity. All right, so gravity. This was a test question. And a lot of people miss this test question. It's kind of weird. You're not supposed to be missing these questions, guys. You're not supposed to be missing this stuff, especially if something is clearly discussed during the lecture. You're not allowed to miss it. All right, it's not like I mumble something for 15 seconds and we moved on. We put a lot of emphasis on this. Is gravity a force? You don't even have the luxury not to be able to answer this question. All right, if I spend time talking about it, number one, you're coming to the lecture. Number two, you got the videos available. Go back, watch the videos. If there's emphasis placed on something, it's important. And you guys come up with some weird answers. I'm not interested in your interpretation. If something is discussed, just understand it, take it in, analyze it, and make sure that it sticks to your brain. Let it sit there, because you guys are engineering students or physics students. You need that stuff. All right? If gravity is a force, it's not a philosophical argument. The answer to that question is it is a force, and not because of the way you explained it. You have to go back to the definition of a force. What's the definition of a force? Force is what causes acceleration. Falling objects, do they accelerate? Absolutely. Which direction? In the direction of the force. That's it. I don't want an explanation for, if it's a force because it pulls you down. I'm not interested in, if it weren't a force, we would be just flying up. I'm not interested in that. Just get to the point. Get to the facts of it. Is gravity a force? Absolutely, it's a force. How do we know? Because the falling objects do accelerate. That's all you needed to say. Gravity extends all the way out to the moon. All right. Well, once again, some of you guys completely missed the point. I don't know. Number one, don't Google stuff. You cannot Google understanding. You can only Google information. If it's information you need, I'm not going to give you that question. All right. Stuff needs to be coming from the lecture. Stuff should be coming from the videos that you should be watching. Details are usually there. Does gravity extend all the way out to the moon? Yes, because there are two reasons for it. The number one reason, if it didn't, it would have gone in a straight line at a constant speed. That is the proof of the presence of the force. It's an incomplete explanation. You come up with that explanation, you will get 1 out of 2 points. What does a force do? Force causes acceleration. Is the moon accelerating? Of course it is. It's circular motion. The acceleration is directed towards the center of the circle. What do we have at the center of the circle? Guys, what do we have? We got the Earth at the center of the circle. Now you make the connection that Newton made 350 years ago under an apple tree. The apple philosophy says because of gravity, which happens to be a force. And he also knows that the force extends all the way out to the moon. So the question is, how come the apple is falling and not the moon? And then the physics is born out of that argument. All right, so visually, here's your apple. Is gravity a force? Of course it is, because the falling apple accelerates, right? So what causes acceleration? A force does. Acceleration is g. That's it. All right, so it appears to be gravitating towards the Earth. That's the reason why it's called the gravitational force. Does gravity extend all the way out to the moon? Of course it does. If it didn't, what would happen? Straight and constant speed, no moon. When it's moving at constant speed, it's not moving at a straight line. So it's changing direction. Circular motion. In circular motion, the acceleration is directed towards the center. force points in the same direction. So which means that the force that pulls the apple down also extends all the way out to the moon. Got it? All right. So these were the questions from task number 4. All right. So if gravity extends all the way out to the moon, the next question is, wait a minute, how come the moon is not falling? Gravity extends all the way out to the moon. Again, wait a minute. How come the astronauts up here weightless? You get you away from gravity. The amount of gravitational force acting on it, the measure of gravity acting on your body becomes your weight. If gravity extends all the way out to the moon, you cannot be weightless between here and the moon. You cannot be weightless between here and the moon if Newton is correct. If Newton is correct, just about the only place in the universe where you become weightless, almost weightless, nearly weightless, is in deep, deep, deep space, which means that you have to be literally light years away from the nearest star or a planet. That's where you will become nearly weightless. In fact, there's no place in the universe you will be 100% weightless. There's no place in the universe you will be nearly 100% weightless. It's just out of the question. And then the question is, what the hell? I mean, these astronauts up here weightless. How's that possible? All right, so we got questions. So for us to be able to answer these questions, we need to know something about the force of gravity.
Lights, please. Just dim the lights.
The law of gravitation was first formulated by the English physicist Sir Isaac Newton in 1684, and then he did some other things, but that was a long time ago. Today we live here on the planet Earth, where gravity creates our weight. If we lived on Jupiter, we would all weigh more, because it has more mass than Earth, and so the gravity is greater. If we lived on the moon, which has less mass, we would all weigh less, because the gravity is less. The end. For a written transcript of this show, listen to it again and write down everything you hear.
When did Newton live, roughly? I don't know. When did Newton live? When did Newton live, roughly? All right, Sarah, give yourself 5 points. That's correct. Only there's a single point where gravity is going to cancel out very near the moon. Outside of that, there's going to be gravity present between here and the moon. Okay, on Newton's law. Okay, so when did Newton live, roughly? All right, did he live like in 1960s? What's your friend with Lincoln? How about Jesus? Did he have a pet dinosaur? What do you guys think? Okay, yeah, 1600s, absolutely. Give yourselves 5 points for those of you guys who said that. It's mid to late 1600s, absolutely correct, guys. All right, so roughly about 350 years ago, right? Just get a sense for it. Once you have a good idea, it's like mid to late 1600s. So this guy came up with these theories roughly about 350 years ago. So he's trying to figure out a theory regarding gravity. And obviously he's a genius. He knows gravity is a force which is caused by the mass itself. All right, I like the way he develops this there. Number one. Oof. All right, so whatever the force is, this force is going to depend on the product of the masses. So we got two masses. Product of the masses means you're multiplying the masses, and it's going to be inversely related to distance between the masses. It's going to be inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the masses. And that's it. Okay, so this is what Newton came up with. If you take what Newton came up with as is, without changing it, it's going to give us some really absurd results, because the force is going to be directly proportional to the product of the masses. It's going to be inversely proportional to the square of the distance between the masses. Distances will be measured with respect to center of mass. So if you just go with that, here's what happens. All right, I'm going to apply this to a real life case in order to demonstrate how absurd the concept is. Let's assume that he's interested in her, and obviously she's not interested. So there's no physical attraction, there's no chemistry. So he's going to try to attract her with gravitation, okay, by using Newton's law of gravity. You know the gravitational force is going to be directly proportional to the product of the masses. All right, so the guy, he's going to try to make his mass as big as possible. So imagine that he can get up to 300 pounds without getting himself killed, right? This is the maximum size that he's going to have. And the girl is a woman, is a small woman, is going to be petite, obviously. And imagine that he could come very close to her without touching her, so roughly about a meter, that's 28 feet. Now, from that distance, what would happen to the gravitational force between them? Okay, so just if you go with a strict interpretation of what Newton came up with, this force of gravity is going to depend on the product of the masses, so which means that you got to take those two masses and multiply them together. It's going to be divided by the square of the distance between these two. When you do that, you end up getting a force which is almost 1,400 pounds. That's crazy. I mean, the amount of force, the gravitational pull between these two will be about 1,400 pounds. What that means is this guy's attraction towards her is going to be about 4.5 times his own body weight, and her attraction towards him is going to be about 13 or 14 times her body weight. Right, so his attraction is going to be 4.5 times his own body weight. Her attraction towards him is going to be about 14 times her body weight. Now, she is more attracted to him than he is to her. I think this is known as the Big Daddy syndrome, right? The reality of it is you would not feel these kind of gravitational forces towards him. If you did, life would have been really weird. Smaller objects would be attracted to you.
At Geico Auto Insurance, we handle your claim
And you would be attracted to the
quickly,
bigger object.
so you don't
And you would be stuck on something, like the buildings or
have to bum
or whatever, right? Life would be impossible.
right to work.
All right, so something is missing in this formula. Something is missing in this formula. What's missing in this formula is because the amount of gravitational pull that we experience towards each other is actually very small, unnecessarily small. I mean, you could get as big as possible. It's not going to make the gravitational force any stronger because of this G that you're looking at. I guess that G is the strength of gravity. The capital G is known as the universal gravitational constant. It gives you the strength of gravity. Speaking of the strength of gravity, let me check to see if this is going to work there. Okay. All right. So we included capital G, this formula. So the F is the force of gravity. M's are the masses. R is the distance, radial distance between the center of mass of each and every single mass. Capital G is known as the universal gravitational constant. It happens to be this number. It's a very small number that you're looking at. All right. So it's going to be 6.67 times 10 minus 11. What that means is you got 10 zeros before you hit the first number. 10 zeros. All right, so this number is nearly zero. This is a very, very, very small number, which means that gravity is extremely weak. So the force of gravity is extremely, extremely weak. So when you actually include that number in your calculation, remember this was like 1,400 pounds, that's G. In reality, now it's going to be microscopic. It's 10 to the minus 7. So the gravitational attraction that we feel towards each other is microscopic. You're not going to feel it. All right. So which means the formula gets adjusted, and the formula looks like this. Capital G is going to be our adjustment constant. Falling objects will fall at a constant rate. So we came up with gravity. Objects falling under the influence of gravity, they will fall at a constant rate. That's going to be 9.8 meters per second squared. Okay, so everything is going to fall at a constant rate. So the question is why? Why is it that everything is falling at the constant rate? Okay, so here's the reason why. The explanation that Newton came up with. Okay, so here's your apple. So it's got weight because of the force of gravity. So you get your weight from the force of gravity. That's what it means. So weight is the measure of gravitational force acting on you. But capital M is the mass of the Earth, so small m is the mass of the apple. So you get your weight from the force of gravity. So which means that this equation is going to equal to that equation. All right. For G, notice that the mass of the apple is going to cancel from the equation. And then you come up with an expression for G. All right, so you came up with an expression for G. All right, so the next question is, just to move forward, what is R? R is going to represent the distance between the apple and the Earth, right? So this is the distance between the apple and the Earth. Most of you guys are thinking that the distance is zero, guys. The distance is not zero. It cannot be zero. So what do we do? We measure the distances with respect to the center of mass, right? So which means that the distance between the apple and the Earth is going to be roughly the radius of the Earth. That's what you end up getting. So R is going to represent the radius of the Earth. Okay, so now we come up with a statement. According to this statement, how fast the objects fall or accelerate is going to depend on the mass of the planet. It's going to be inversely related to the size of the planet, square of the size of the planet. Okay, so the next question is this even correct? I mean, this is 9.8 is your observed value or the measured value, and that's the prediction. So the prediction says this is the formula, right? All right, so basically, here's what you do. This is the strength of gravity. This is the mass of the Earth, the radius of the Earth. And we'll check to see what the predicted value for G is. If it's 9.8, which it is, then which means that predicted value as well as the measured values are the same, as they're the same, which means that this formula is correct. Got it? It's the reason why Newton's theory is proven. So that formula is correct. The interesting thing is, there are two predictions. We got 2 minutes before I let you guys go, and then I'll see you guys for the lab. One prediction is more mass of the planet as a star is, the larger the acceleration is going to be. The smaller it is, the smaller the acceleration is going to be. That's common sense. All right, so for a given size, you find a planet which is going to be 5 times more massive than the Earth is. That's your 5G environment. Got it? This 5G environment. The weird prediction comes from the second one. Notice that G is going to be inversely proportional to the square of the size of the planet, square of the size of the planet. So what that means is you find a planet, same mass as the Earth is, except half the size. So what happens to G? Half the size, which means that you got everything is divided by 2. 2 squares is going to be 4, so that's going to be a 4G environment. Right? So you find a planet the same mass 3 times smaller, it's going to be a 9G environment. Planet the same size 4 times smaller, it's going to be a 16G environment. Okay, so notice that smaller the R is, larger the G is going to be. That's actually an interesting prediction that comes out of this. All right. So before I let you guys go, here's the conclusion of it. Okay, so Newton's theory is correct because experimental and the measured values are the same. Okay, for falling objects. All right, so the mass of the falling object doesn't matter because how fast the objects fall will depend on the mass of the planet, and it's going to depend on the size of the planet. All right, so here's the next question. Does gravity, I mean, there's a force extending all the way out to the moon. The question is that the gravitational force? There's no question that there's a force acting on the moon. The question is that the gravitational force? Well, if it were the gravitational force, first thing you would do is figure out the strength of that acceleration. All right, so location, this would be the acceleration of the moon going. All right, so you would get a mathematical prediction form. So if the force of gravity extends all the way out to the moon, and that's what Newton is worried about, is it the same force? All right, so if this is due to gravity, this is the expression that we end up using for the gravitational acceleration. M is the mass of the Earth. R is going to be distance all the way out to the moon. All right, so we've just seen the computation for this one. So it would generate an acceleration which is this small, 0.00273. All right, so that's the number that we got, right? Now that's the predicted value. Okay, so somebody has to measure that. If somebody measures it and it turns out that this is the measured value, then you know gravity extends all the way out to the moon. Except Newton lived 350 years ago. He didn't have the technology to measure that correctly. And instead, is what they did. They looked at the deviation of the moon from a straight line onto this trajectory. All right, they were able to measure that. It's actually calculated, but I'm going to say it's measured. It's called storytelling. Disney's not the one who's lying here. All right. So what's happening is the moon, instead of going in a straight line, it's going to deviate towards the Earth, a distance of 1/20th of an inch per second. That's it. So that's the only measurement that they got. So here's the prediction. Here's what they were able to measure. So how do you incorporate the distance fallen towards the Earth within a certain time period with the acceleration due to gravity? All right, guys, the guy in the background, Newton in the background, is working on calculus at this point. And of course, I need that because when I saw the square, I know that you can't make that assumption. That comes out of math. Algebra would not give you that kind of assumption. It's much more sophisticated than algebra. On top of that, another byproduct is this formula, free fall formula. This stuff comes out of calculus. All right, so the calculus is he's inventing calculus as he's solving this problem. You end up getting a free fall formula. I mean, that's just, there's a rich history on this page. It's weird. Anyway, so how do you do this now? Now we need to get a prediction. The prediction is for acceleration. Our measurements is related to the distance, a deviation from a straight line onto that trajectory. And then we have a mathematical expression that comes out of calculus. All right, so this G is the one that you have to use in this formula and check to see you check to see if you can get 1/20th of an inch within 1 single second. So we have to substitute numbers into this one and check to see what happens. All right, so this one is easy. 1 squared is going to be 1. It's number divided by 2 roughly. I'm going to wiggle it. It's going to give you 1,000th of a meter. That's a millimeter. That's about 1/20th of an inch. All right, guys. This 1/20th of an inch is the proof that gravity is the force that extends all the way out to the moon. All right, so we knew there was a force acting on the moon. We didn't know it was gravity. We made the assumption that it was, but notice that in physics, every single assumption has to be tested. Okay. The force pulling the apple down, the assumption is that's the same force extends all the way out to the moon. And that assumption had to be verified. And here's the verification. All right. According to the prediction, if it's gravity, it's supposed to fall towards the Earth onto this trajectory, 1/20th of an inch per second. This is the observation. This is the theory. Once again, the numbers match. So what does it mean? That means gravity extends all the way out to the moon. That's what it means. So that is the proof that the gravity is the force that extends all the way out to the moon. So the force that pulls the apple down is the same force extending all the way out to the moon. We still got questions, guys. We still have questions. The apple falls. Why doesn't the moon? Does it?
Of us
Astronauts appear weightless in space.
have only experienced.
Are they really weightless? NASA used to say 0G. Now they say microgravity. All right. It's the appearance of 0G. And then the sensation of microgravity. That's what they mean. All right. In space, G is not 0. And gravity is no microgravity. That's complete nonsense. All right. Not near the Earth. If you're 180 miles from the surface of the Earth, gravity just goes down from almost 10 to 9. That's it. Okay. So it's just value is going to diminish. So what does that mean? So someone who weighs about 215, 16 pounds in space, this guy's still going to weigh about 200 pounds. Being in space, you lose about 15 to 20 pounds. So
I thought there was a
by no means you're weightless. It's complete nonsense.
that there.
So you just appear weightless.
You really can't wait for the next parabola. I don't know if it's a throwback to some
All right, so
embryonic sort of
people appear weightless
recollection parabola.
inside an airplane
I don't know if it's a throwback to
going through a projectile motion.
some.
This projectile motion is the same as free fall. In free fall, everything falls at the same rate. You find yourself inside a falling elevator. As soon as the cable snaps, you will appear weightless. Oh, by the way, guys, this was a test question. I think this was test question 5. Once again, this was discussed in full detail. In fact, I spent more than an hour talking about it. And more than half of you guys missed the question. You're not supposed to be missing these kind of things. And physics is a discipline that builds upon itself. Hence the reason we will have tons of upgrades this week. All right, you can't be missing stuff which is discussed. This is not like something I mumbled and I'm asking for. This was front and center in front of your eyes. It was blah, 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 example after example. You cannot be missing stuff like that. When a cable snaps, everything goes in a free fall. You're falling at the same rate as the elevator. You will feel weightless, just like these people.
Embryonic.
This is no different from finding yourself in a falling
Sort
elevator.
of recollection.
Everything that you
that
see
we
here
have.
is everything that you can do inside a falling
Or
elevator.
what? But it's very soothing
I don't recommend that you do this in a falling elevator, because here they will let you know when they will stop. Elevator will come to a stop unexpectedly.
and exhilarating and a lot of fun, because I never have to do this
These people, are they weightless? Not really. They're not weightless. They're up here with this, they feel weightless.
because I was
Why? Because they are in a free fall. They're experiencing free fall in the form of projectile motion. So they actually, this is how they shot the movie Apollo 13
always involved
instead of using special effects. All right, so the director decided that this was the most realistic way of doing it.
in every shot. But anytime one of the actors was not in a scene, they didn't go and rest somewhere. They went to the back of the aircraft, and on every parabola, they would play super.
So that's the reason why the actors appeared weightless in the movie. But how about the people in space? Why did they appear weightless? Why did they appear weightless? All right, explanation once again comes from Newton himself. In that analogy that he came up with, it was talking about firing a cannonball so fast that it would go around the Earth. So it's the same sort of analogy. It's on the moon because there's no air friction in this representation. So you start firing bullets so fast that at some point, the trajectory of the falling bullet is going to match the curvature of the surface of the moon, which means that this bullet is going to be in orbit around the moon. What kind of motion is this? Projectile motion, which is the same as free fall, guys. This bullet is in free fall around the moon in the form of projectile motion. It's called orbital motion. So the same thing happens to a space shuttle. It's 180 miles from the surface of the Earth, traveling roughly about 17,500 miles per hour. It's in free fall in the form of projectile motion. It's in free fall. People inside in free fall, just like the people inside the elevator. Cable snaps. You look down. If you're standing on a scale, the scale reading is going to be 0. You will appear. You will feel weightless, and you will appear weightless from outside. And likewise here, everything is in free fall in the form of projectile motion. So the answer to the biggest question. Newton said apple falls because of gravity. If that's the case, why doesn't the moon also fall from the sky? We just explained everything except for that question. All right, so the apple is falling. How about the moon? The moon is also falling, right? Just like the apple does. Under the influence of gravity, moon is also falling. Moon is also in a free fall in the form of projectile motion, which means that it's falling, but it's falling from a straight line onto a trajectory that matches the curvature of the surface of the Earth. That's it. All right, so that becomes the conclusion. Is, can we overcome gravity and overcome?
Gravity is working against me, and gravity wants to bring me down. Oh, I'll never know what makes this night with all the love this heart can stand. Dream of ways to throw it all away. Wants to bring me down. Oh, twice as much ain't twice as good, and can't sustain like one half could. It's one and more. It's gonna send me to.
All right, so can you overcome gravity, mind over matter? Well, it depends. Can you levitate?
Lift your spirits with grilled all white meat chicken, seasoned rice and beans, a traditional slow simmered sauce, and 3 melted cheeses for a taste like no other. To experience enchilada nirvana, you've got to think outside the bun.
All right, if somebody says I can levitate, I don't care about this.
Enchilada nirvana, experience enchilada nirvana. Weather.
Here's what I don't want to see. Don't jump up and down on your ass and say that's
experience enchilada nirvana.
Regarding this, I don't care that you can't do this, but at least get up off the floor without flinching a muscle, and then stay there, hang there just a fraction of a second. All right, make sure that you're not moving up or down. Just go up there and stay there. Even half a second is good enough. But don't jump. Don't flinch a muscle. If you can do that, say, okay, there's something here. It doesn't need to be this commercial quality or movie quality levitation. Just do that resorting to any sort of magic tricks, the illusions, the technology, no flinching muscles. Just go up without pushing up against anything and hover there just briefly and then come back down. I want that to be completely controlled. I don't want to see any acceleration. All right. Once you're airborne, I want you to go up gently and then come back down. All right. That's what I want to see.
Gravity or nullify its effects. You wouldn't truly hover in midair. What would happen is you would tend to recede away in the direction of the spin of the Earth. The Earth is turning. And so as you were over the surface of the Earth and you levitated from the surface, you would continue in a tangent path, a straight line away from the surface of the Earth, gradually gaining altitude. You would not come around the world and land on some other spot. You would go flying off into space as the feathers of gravity were cut.
All right, let's go over what this guy said. Real levitation. All right. How do you guys think that real levitation is going to look like someone is just hovering around?
What would happen is you would tend to recede.
In reality, what happens is, if you could really cancel gravity, you wouldn't be hovering around. It's that because the Earth is spinning, you're already moving with the Earth about 1,000 miles per hour, guys. It's about 1,000 miles per hour. So what would happen if you were to cancel out gravity? Net force acting on you would be zero. What that means is you would keep on moving at 1,000 miles per hour in a straight line at constant speed. What that means is you would be projected out.
You're discerning.
I mean, this is your levitating yogi 10 minutes later. You will literally be projected out into space just like that.
And the lady, pretty soon you have to go. There is no great downward.
Okay, this is a magic trick. I know it's a magic trick. I have no idea how they do it.
Because the hope would be.
And I don't care. When I'm watching this, I like being fooled. But at the same time, I know that this is not real levitation. Because if it were real levitation, what would happen? You cancel gravity, this person is going to start the ascent. This person literally is going to move in a straight line at constant speed. This person is going to start to rise up
down.
At an angle, just like that. It's just person is going to go at an angle.
Jerk downward.
If it's a true levitation, it would have to have a stick like that, one interpretation. So you can anchor yourself to the ground so that you're not projected into space. Okay, you can use that argument when you see a levitation stick like that. You don't become this. If there is true levitation, or is there? All right, so true levitation would kind of look like this. Okay, this little animation that you're looking at, it would literally, if someone were to levitate, would start to move towards the heaven.
Then try to disprove this one thing.
This is more like it. All right, no one is going to be hovering around. This person is going to be...
Which doesn't fit into our current scientific paradigms. Why not assume that it was true and let that become the seed that then opens up a complete understanding of human potential that includes the ability to float in the air and to fly, and vastly more than that.
You'll be projected out into space.
John Hagelin, a physicist who joined the movement in the 70s, expresses no doubt that levitation is possible.
Okay, now we talk about the skeptic. Let's talk about the physicist. Now, contrary to what you think, this guy obviously claims that it's possible. All right, so he's a physicist. Let's do a compare and contrast. You guys are skeptical. You should be skeptical, obviously, because it's a weird claim. Most of you guys will say, "How do you overcome gravity?" This guy says it is no doubt that it's possible, which means that it's 100% possible. All right. So you say it's not. This guy says it is. So he's a physicist. You're not. Let's do a compare and contrast. This guy is a physicist. He has a PhD in physics. You guys are community college students taking freshman level calculus physics. And so this guy is kind of light years ahead of you. He's got a PhD in quantum gravitational field theory, so gravity is his specialty. And this is your first real true introduction to gravity. And then let me take it one step further. This guy has a PhD from Harvard. And you guys are community college students. So all of a sudden you got a real expert here, and he says it is possible. So the question is how? Okay. Check to see the way he's thinking, and then...
And that it's made possible through the laws of quantum physics.
Right, so he says laws of quantum physics makes it possible. Let me tell you briefly about the laws of quantum physics. When applied, it becomes nuclear bombs. When applied, it becomes the electronics technology that we're using today that makes this Zoom presentation possible. Okay, it's called modern physics, in essence.
These laws, he claims, allow mind to take control over matter.
So it's mind over matter. Right, so forget the quantum physics and all that stuff. I did something weird. Most of you guys didn't notice it. You know, it's like leading the blind at this point. So this is a lecture I've given like 50, 60 times. So it's a bit of a magic trick. The magic happens between your ears, behind your eyes, eyeballs. There's something mysterious about gravity that I want to point out. The strength of gravity, guys, it's got 10 zeros. That number has 10 zeros in front of it. All right, that number is so small that it's amazing that gravity exists at all. Right. So the only thing you have to do is you have to overcome a number which is nothing but happens to be something. Okay. Can you overcome a number which has 10 zeros in front of it? Mind over matter. Is it possible that you don't think it's possible because you never believed in it and you never tried it? Well, let's find out.
First thing we have to
Check to see what he says first.
recognize
And now let's check to see those people who believe that they can overcome gravity. Check to see what they
in understanding yogic flying is the question, how can we escape the grip of gravity? Are we defying Newton's gravitational laws? The answer is, well, yes. Are we defying Einstein's general relativity, which is a more modern theory of gravity? Well, yes.
So that guy's charging up his body.
In the domes here at Maharishi University of Management, the whole community basically comes twice a day to practice yogic flying collectively.
Okay, these guys are the believers. These guys have been practicing it on a daily basis, twice per day. That's a lot of time.
During the practice of yogic flying, which is an advanced aspect of meditation, a tremendous upsurge of energy over...
Here's your first attempt at levitation. All right, this shortly is identical or similar to the magazine picture that I saw. It looked exactly like this. It was all blurry, and you guys saw what he did. This guy jumped. And when I was looking at the picture, it was the same. So it looked to me like the guy jumped. So that's the reason why I asked my dad. I said, is this for real? And almost got killed. He was really upset. He told me that this was real, and Indian yogis have been doing it for hundreds of years. In reality, if you go back, boom, you realize that the guy jumped. Is this levitation? Not really.
Using the mind, you can overcome classical gravitational laws that hold us down.
So what he's going to do is he's going to try it again. He's pushing up against the ground. To me, this is no, because I normally would want you to go up without pushing and then hover and then come back down. And then there's no catch. All right, he goes up and comes back down. So once he rises up, he's not staying there. So this is not levitation. This was once again a hop. It didn't work.
Not by levitation, but by taking access to deeper gravitational laws, quantum gravitational laws, which take precedence over those macroscopic laws.
Maybe it's a communal thing. All right, if you get 4 or 5 of them together, let them just jump on. Hopefully one person is going to catch and hang. Check to see if that happens. Maybe it's a trial and error. These are hopping.
With levitation, human levitation, you're not fighting gravity.
It's not happening here. It's not happening.
You're taking control over gravity.
These guys are just hopping.
You're changing the curvature of space and time, if you wish, so that the gravitational force isn't pulling us down, but is pushing us up.
Not everyone who's witnessed yogic flying shares this belief that the flyers are escaping gravity.
All right, so that's hopping.
Is flight, or is it simply hopping?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I wonder if I can answer that question. Let's see.
It may look like...
Is it pushing up against the ground? Of course, yes. It's pushing up against the ground. The ground is going to apply the force back on him. As a result, he goes through a projectile motion.
May look like
He's against the ground. Once again, here's the evidence. And then he goes up, goes through a projectile motion. What this guy does, and let me show you, because I don't practice this twice per day, but I'll do my attempt. What this guy does is exactly this. Except these guys are jumping around like double amputees, which means that these guys are Special Olympics ready. All right, is this levitation? Are you freaking kidding? Not a freaking chance. This is not levitation. They know it. I know it. So what they say, oh, this is like a step below levitation.
Activity. The inner experience is one of flying.
Of course. Close your eyes. You're in projectile motion. What does that feel like? Oh, briefly, you will feel weightless.
It is flying. So you take a hop and then you're gliding. It feels wonderful. Most people...
So these guys literally get high from being physically high whenever they're jumping up.
That are experiencing Maharishi's yogic flying are in between the first and second stage.
All right, so that's your second stage, right? Dad got really pissed off when I said, is this for real? And he said, yeah, yogis have been doing it for hundreds of years. Guys, this is one of those drawings from a century ago or a couple of centuries ago. Every time someone is levitating, there's a stick involved. Okay. One interpretation that I can give you is obviously, hey, if it's true levitation, you're going to get projected into space, projected out into space. So you have to anchor it.
Doing for centuries.
That's one explanation, obviously.
And what
all right, so it's a lot of what you're looking at is that, all right? If you see a levitation stick, there's a reason for it. Who's this guy? This guy's special hat. All right, this end up in a much more sophisticated version of this one on stage. That's the reason why he was having a hard time walking. All right, the contraption was much better built on stage, the one that he was using. So this is special head. Once again, it's special head, the beach. So every time you see someone do this, there's a levitation stick. There's some that they're sitting on. All right. All right, I don't know what's happening right now. All right, let's check to see if... Remember the guy on the train? All right, cool. The levitation? No. No, this is once again special head. This guy's. It's beautifully executed. He's got some kind of contraption. He hooks it here. Obviously, he's sitting on it. He's got the second contraption on the other hand. It's also hooked to the side, so you can handle it one single hand, or you can switch hands. He's putting on a show. It's impressive. It's really well done. This is prank. This is a prank. Okay, no real levitation. It's like stage magic. It looks like he's levitating because of this. It's all in the angles.
I don't even know how they're gonna react.
Girl levitating at a coffee shop. This is doing. This guy's a magician. I don't know how he pulled it off, but it's beautifully executed. At least I know it's a magic trick, so we don't have to worry about being real.
I don't know. Twin buttons? Babe.
This is a gorgeous execution.
I just saw her and she was like up in the air and I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't know. I just don't know what happened.
So basically, nobody at work has any idea what we're doing.
Okay.
So all the customers, everything, no, even the employees.
She was kind of freaked out, but it was awesome.
Babe, can you hear me?
Est-ce que c'est vrai? Est-ce que c'est pas vrai? I'm still like trying to understand, but I just can't. I've never seen anything like it before. It was cool.
Beautiful, beautiful execution. That was beautiful. All right, so the question is this guy. I mean, honestly, I'm curious, is this guy for real? I see that my dad believes in it, then again, he's a medical doctor. What does he know? You got Tom Cruise, it's his Scientology thing. But this guy is a true physicist with a PhD in physics from Harvard. I mean, does he even have the proper credentials? So that's what I was curious. Sure enough, that checks out. All right, so I was thinking, oh my God, is this guy really nuts? Because that's a weird commitment.
Oh, hello.
And then a few years later, I'm working on research. It's like 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And this thing is in the background.
Namaste.
It's a documentary about this monk who has a reputation of being able to levitate.
It's nice to meet you.
This guy approaching him.
I've heard so many things about you.
He's a documentary maker. This guy is a stage magician in the United States, and he wants to meet him. And then he wants to get him to actually levitate for him.
I've been traveling all over Nepal on a quest for real magic. And everyone who I've met, everyone who I've seen, everyone I've talked to said to meet you. So it's an honor, so thank you.
Thank you very much. I have not magic powers.
No, but people have told me that you have special qualities of meditation, that you can do amazing things with your body through meditation.
I'm very sorry. This meditation is only for myself, not for other people.
Oh, no, I understand. I'd like you to closely guard my secrets. But I still was wondering if you'd just be able to talk to me about it. I've come so far away. Maybe we can share about what you do.
Of course, we can talk to you.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
So I brought this with me.
I'd like to give it to you as a gift. Okay? Look.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me into your beautiful home. I would really like to know some more about your techniques.
It's not easy to understand. It's like an ocean. It's very deep.
Right. Well, I understand your hesitation to show me anything, but if I showed you something, might you reconsider?
Yes, of course.
My entire journey and everything I've done to this point comes down to this. I need to impress this man with one of my illusions in the hopes that he will show me what I've come so far to see.
See the moon?
Yes.
I know the Buddha was born under the full moon. I know how important the full moon is in Buddhist culture. And if I take my hand and close my fingers around the moon and cause it to disappear.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Very fantastic.
Thank you.
Please sit down.
Okay. So, the thing that I hear the most about you, and you can tell me if this is true or not, is that you have power of levitation. And as a magician, this is something that I'm fascinated with.
Your magic is fantastic, but we have not the same Buddhist meditations.
Yes, I understand. I know you don't want to teach me how to do it or tell me any of what you do, but maybe I could just witness it.
All right, so if he does it, it's not a magic trick. It's part of the Buddhist practice. That's what it means.
You can verify me. You show me what's there. I don't know what happened, but I will try one time.
Okay, great.
I need you back. If you still close me, then my energy doesn't know. Yes.
Okay.
right now he's saying his mantra. It's the real deal.
Then I noticed that this movement in the opposite direction. My initial impression is he's not going to be able to levitate. It's a waste of time. He doesn't have a levitation step. Forget it. And then all of a sudden there's motion. There's excitement. My second thought is, oh, he's pulling a David Blaine. What does David Blaine do? He pushes up against the ground using the foot which is concealed. And somehow from that position, this guy is able to do it because there's a shadow underneath. Of course, the other guy is a magician, so the cameraman knows what to look for. So they will let him rise up a little bit more and check to see where the contact point is. So the camera is going to get right underneath.
Have you guys seen this?
There's nothing there. And now they're just zooming in. There's no contact point. This guy's not touching the ground. So the other way of doing this sort of trick is literally they use cables. You won't be able to see them because they're not going to cause any reflection. So he's checking to see where the cables are. No cables. All right, so he's really, really puzzled.
Wow. There's wires. I didn't see anything. This is crazy.
Can I approach you?
Yes.
How do you feel? Okay. Thank you so much. And seeing and talking to so many people just to see you do that. So thank you very, very much. It's been enlightening. I wasn't sure I'd ever find you. You know, my whole journey through your country has been absolutely amazing and truly magical. And I want to thank you for showing me what you do.
Thank you for finding me. And I remember this clear mind open and always continue to do.
Thank you. Namaste.
That was amazing. Totally worth it. I don't care if it's real, fake, or illusion. I don't even know, but I don't really know how he did it. I can pretty much guarantee that there were no strings, or I didn't see anything underneath, and I didn't see anything above. But he did tell me in the crew to step back. I think there was a reason for that. I think there was something that he didn't want me to see.
Okay, the weird thing is,
My energy doesn't know.
all right, once again, this is in Tibet. Some are Tibetan monks. The other guy is living in
I didn't see
Nepal because Tibet is under occupation. Okay, so this is part of the Tibetan monk practice. And these two guys look alike. And the author of Tintin said that these things are based on his real life experiences. This is how the anecdotes are created, guys. So the question is this real levitation, yes or no? How would you answer it if you had a test question like that? What do you guys think? Is this real levitation?
Excuse me. I see.
There's more.
Yes or no?
No,
Okay, Christian, you said no. Explain.
because the force of gravity is centered towards the Earth and not the other way
Right.
Upwards.
I'm going to give you 5 points. No. I mean, this is the closest thing to levitation that I've seen so far that matches what these people believe in. You find a monk who's able to levitate in front of a magician who doesn't know how to figure this out. All right. And then you have a physicist who says this is for real. My question is this true levitation? This guy doesn't have a levitation stick. He's not a magician. He already told you that this is part of his practice. Also, I gave you a history behind it. I said the guy who drew Tintin, he also experienced the same thing. All right, so this is part of their practice, and they've been doing it for hundreds of years. My question is, okay, go ahead.
I think he was wearing a jetpack. That's why he's
Okay.
floating.
I got to tell you guys, your reasoning only reflects your belief system, which is believing in something is an emotional commitment to an idea, which is right or wrong. If you don't want to believe in it, here's the evidence. Boom. You wanted to see someone levitate? I'm showing you someone levitate. Is this true levitation? And your explanations are not good enough. How would you answer it on a test if I were to give you this question?
No, because if he truly was overcoming the force of gravity, he would be flying off in a straight line at a constant speed.
Give yourself 50 points for that one. Beautiful. Because this is my I have no idea what this guy did. Okay. And I don't care what he did. This is not true levitation. It's really impressive. And I'm not a magician. I don't know the tricks. Some I do, some I don't. Obviously, that levitating stick thing, I got that. It was impressive when I found out. This guy's holy shit. This is amazing execution. I don't know how he's done it. I've seen it done better or equally as well on stage. It's not true levitation, because if it were true levitation, what would happen? People start moving towards the heaven. They would start moving towards the sky. This guy is hovering. This guy is hovering. This is so beautifully executed. I don't know how the hell he had done it. That was really impressive. Stage magic is just as impressive, believe it or not. I don't know what's happening with my PowerPoint. It's just not loading properly. All right, let's wait. Yeah, I mean, that was real impressive. Chris Angel does it on the street.
Have you ever been hypnotized?
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna try this with you. All right. So why don't you step right over here for me? I want you to think about a time in your life where it's just a perfect moment, a moment that you want it to last forever. And I want you to think about that moment. I want you to close your eyes right now for me. Close your eyes. Good. I want you to fall back into that place. I want you just to relax and allow yourself to go right back to that place. Fall back into that place. Fall back into that place. Fall back into that place. Just relax yourself. Just relax yourself. Relax your entire body. Relax. Just relax.
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Just relax.
That rocks.
Relax. Okay, just relax yourself. Relax yourself. Relax yourself.
Oh my God, that's so. I don't know how to. I do not have muscle control like that. He's totally out. Totally out.
Oh, girl. I would never do that.
You all right?
That was so freaking cool. You were totally flat out in there. Nothing in here. And he just had his hands over you like this. You're totally spelled out. And it was so amazing. My eyes open or what? No, you were like you were dead or something. It was so cool. No, nothing. There was nothing under you. I was looking. There was nothing under you.
So that's not real levitation either. You would be projected towards the sky, right? You would keep on moving in a straight line at constant speed. So you would start to go up in reality. It's really, really well done. I have no idea how they do it, but it's really, really impressive. Okay, so part of the mind twisting, I said the strength of gravity. Okay, this was an attempt to fool you, and it works really, really well for whatever reason. Remember, I said the strength of gravity is you got 10 zeros before the first number. It's so small that you should be able to overcome it. That's correct. But what I didn't tell you, and this is how easy it is to fool people. So I could see that people get very easily fooled. Okay, yeah, it is true that this number is very small. I almost made it sound like this is something that you can overcome mind over matter. But in reality, what you do is you take this number and multiply this mass of the Earth, and this is 10 to the 24. This is million times million times million. Okay, so it's 6 million times million times million times million. That's a huge number. And divided by the square of the radius of the Earth. And when you do that, it's going to give you a number which is almost 10. All right. And then you multiply your mass with it. And then that gives you a weight. In my case, it's 150 pounds, guys. You cannot overcome 150 pounds generating some kind of a spiritual uplift. That's complete nonsense. On top of that, the internal forces will not cause you to accelerate. We discussed that. So that's out of the question. There's absolutely no justification for something like that. Regarding the physicist, he was using a Copenhagen interpretation of the quantum theory. That's just an interpretation. That's philosophy. That's not science. Okay. He's free to believe in anything he wants. So you got these skeptics who don't believe in anything, and you got these believers who believe in everything. So those are, once again, these are extremes. These are extremes. Okay. In this case, despite the fact that I have given you a pretty bad beating, saying all the nastiest things about your common sense helped this time. I know I don't see your faces, but you end up changing your minds many, many times during this presentation. And you were like, you started to doubt yourself. That's perfectly normal. How do I know that? Because I'm a lecturer by profession. It's usually in person. Lecturing is the one that I prefer because there's usually a communication. Online is almost like talking to myself. I can't see you guys, you can see me fine. That's the extent of it. So I don't know what the extent of the communication is. But this is one of those presentations that I made to faculty members at the art school. I remember once a year, I used to make these presentations. And for one of the reasons people enjoy these presentations, because these are all mind twisters. It's a learning experience. So started off with the question, levitation possible? And to the last person, I had like 50 people in front of me. Not a single person was a believer, not a single person. By the time I was done with the presentation, you know the conclusion of the presentation. No, levitation is not possible. It's not possible because if it were possible, you would be projected out into space, guys. Also, the internal forces would not cause acceleration. You cannot cancel out an external force generating an internal force. So the conclusion, simply, you don't need to be a physicist. The Earth is spinning. You're moving with the Earth. You cancel gravity. You're projected out into space. So, except out of the 50 people, 10 of them became staunch believers. They came up to me and they said, Cannon, you missed the point. That monk, that's a true levitation. You can argue that. It was bizarre. I mean, these people, these are my friends, these are faculty members. They would show up every single day trying to convince me that was true levitation. And not only that, remember that woman appearing to levitate at a coffee shop? They believed that was also true levitation, despite the fact that the guy who designed it is a magician. It's bizarre, all right? It's weird that I can make a cellular presentation like that, and next thing you know, people who are open-minded enough, despite the fact that it wasn't my intention, they were convinced that the true levitation is possible. Okay, so it's kind of weird how easy it is to fool people.